Hi everyone, welcome back to No Sugar with Everything Krause. No sugar, no sugar, no sugar
mama.
We were really off there.
You were off there, sister.
Well, like
kidding.
I was going
I take
in the
full-
normal speed and you were really slow.
But I was like, I don't know how we were off there actually, because I thought I was lined up with you perfectly.
Maybe it was the virtual vibes.
We'll blame it on the virtual. If not, it's virtual. It definitely was me.
Mm-hmm.
I do take full responsibility.
We also figured out that our echoing when we do virtual, like or when we both try and talk at the same time and it's like a weird echoey sound, was completely user error on our end. So we kind of fixed that, which is why I thought we could do the little jingle jangle together today.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like we could get it done today.
No sugar.
No sugarnista.
Like it just feels. I'm like slow. I feel like a sloth these days. Yeah, I just feel like every motion that I do lately is like molasses. Like walking home from the gym, I'm like, yeah, I got time.
I do just have to point out, because we're all about being open and honest on this podcast, that last week was not my greatest week. And I just want to address that because I think it's important to also tell our listeners that even though we talk about all this stuff and like the wins and setting up your goals and setting up your day, like doesn't mean it's going to be perfect for us. And last week I got on the podcast, was like, I'm home from vacay, I'm ready to go, I'm craving the discipline, and I legitimately couldn't get out of bed in the morning.
Last week was crazy.
It was wild, and I don't know if it was like the cold. I know it was like a mix of the cold, the snow, just like my time of the month. There was a lot of things that went into last week, and when I tell you it would be like 9 o'clock and my eyes were like still glued shut. I was like, I can't get out of this bed. Like
I
truly.
actually found so much comfort in it, Kateri, because I had the same week. Let's just say that. Like, I definitely did not have a good week. And every time I'd wake up, like, I wouldn't even have a text from Kateria. And I was like, oh, nice. She's asleep. Like, I was like, thank God. Because I literally woke up one day last week at 9:40.
Yeah.
I've never woken up at that time at school before in my life. Like, when I'm at school and, like, in the middle of my week, I have too much stuff to do to wake up at 9:40. Like, that was crazy to me. And I just was in the complete same boat as you, Kateria, where I could not get up.
I was also going to bed way later than I normally do.
Yeah.
Like, it was like past midnight pretty much every night. So I know that also, like, I can't expect to get up at 6:30 in the morning or like 6 or even 7 if I'm going to bed that late. Like, my body needed more sleep last week.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I checked my Oura ring when I would wake up at 9 or 9:30 the one day, it was like still 7 hours of sleep because I was going to bed so late.
Literally, that was the same with me. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't even like recover.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not like I went on, it was like 9 hours of sleep because I wasn't getting proper sleep. So I just wanted to address that because I do think it's important to share that not every day is going to be perfect. And I did still try and like take advantage of the rest of the day with reading and listening to Bible in a Year and working out. Like, it was still like got the wins in most days, but the reading win is the mental win is hard for me some days.
Mm-hmm. The mental one is very difficult. And yeah, I would say I didn't win last week. Last week was not a winning week.
Yeah, it was not my
Sorry, was that too like? Well, this is what I'm working on now, though. I said this to Kateria earlier, but I'll bring it to the podcast now. Is when I don't have winning weeks, I sort of get on myself and I'm very harsh on myself, not to get serious with it, but just to bring it up. I'm very harsh on myself and I get upset and like, oh my God, Isabel, you slept in every single day this week. It's almost takes away from my wins that I have the later that day because I'm so angry that I wasn't disciplined in that area. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously my next step of like where I want to improve on is like being okay with myself, being so in love and like proud of myself when I'm not fully showing up the best I can. Like, even when I'm, failing. Mm-hmm. I still need to have that love and respect for myself, and I can't lose that. So that's like my next step of progress I want to work on is like, even when you mess up, even when you make mistakes, even when your discipline lacks, like, are you still going to be proud of who you are? Not just like when you are showing up. So that was my little reflection from the week of not winning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good reflection too, because it can become a very vicious cycle if you're only really proud of yourself or, like you said, love yourself when you're in that like super disciplined work hard mode.
Yeah.
Because then it's hard to bring that love for yourself in any other aspect if you're not like performing at the highest level possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a very vicious cycle, and it's really hard to get out of. But
that's not realistic. Like I can't constantly perform at the highest
Mm-mm.
level. That's like exhausting. Burnout needs, like, maybe that's what happened last week. I was burnout.
Yeah.
Like you need to give yourself some breaks.
I feel like it was just kind of a necessary, like, slow week. And even me, yes, I was just on vacation, so I was having a hard time being like, well, you're kind of taking it slow another week.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I had said to you, almost it felt like mental exhaustion as well, just because I was in a different environment with Tyler's family. So it wasn't like the comfort of my own home, and then just traveling in general. Like our travel day home was legitimately all day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 13-hour travel day. So like, of course I'm going to need to catch up on sleep and just kind of create a safe environment for my body again. Like I really do feel like it was just exhausted in a bunch of different ways. So that's what I'm just trying to remind myself and understand that when we were talking about the motivation versus discipline, like these are the moments where it's like we still showed up for ourselves.
Yeah.
We might not have been motivated to do it. And specifically last week, I literally wasn't motivated to.
I had not 1 ounce of motivation within my body.
Not one single ounce. And it's important to just recognize, like, okay, what did we feel during that moment? Because that will happen again.
Yeah.
There will come another week when we won't feel that great. Maybe it'll last a whole month. Like, I was even struggling to get up today. Like,
honestly, when I woke up today, I was like, no, I can't have a week 2 of this, can I? I was like, please, God, please help me this week.
I talked to someone, like, actually, right before we started recording, I'm like, I can't have a repeat of last week because it just didn't make me feel good.
It didn't make me feel good at all. I actually was so upset at the end of the week. I was like,
yeah, I'm like, I don't, like, even on the weekend, I'm like, it's not even like, oh, I get to sleep in, it's the weekend. It's like, you really did that all week. So literally. Just wanted to address that because it's not all perfect over here, and it's important to recognize that and address it with you guys so that you know that we aren't these girls that are just sitting on their high horse in their disciplined era. It's like, no, I'm struggling era.
No, yeah. The winter is doing.
The winter is just doing.
The winter is doing
damage
in
a way that I've never experienced before.
I'm or taken aback.
Maybe I have, and I just, because we talk about it on the podcast, I'm like I'm recognizing it more of like how I'm feeling. I don't know. I don't know,
but I literally want to lay on the couch every single night. I don't want to move my body at all.
I'm just been like,
I just want to eat like foods like sourdough and soup and like a grilled cheese and mac and cheese. Like oh my God, like I just want like comforting, carby, warm food. And I want to lay on the couch with you, and I just want to watch endless movies.
A grilled cheese sounds so
oh my God, right, like a sourdough grilled cheese with tomato soup.
Stop it, sister. It's literally only 10:40 in the morning, and I want that. Like, I could eat that. If someone brought that into me right now, I would eat it.
I could do that. Crush it. Okay.
Sorry
for a little bit of a ramble.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
So today's episode was actually inspired by a conversation I had this past weekend with my roommates. Whenever I'm talking to people about it and I hear like my roommates' thoughts on it, and I hear how many thoughts they have and how many different viewpoints there is, and like all the concerns that they have, and we can get into a really good conversation about it. I always want to bring it to the podcast because I'm like, oh wow, like if they're thinking this way, how many other people are thinking this way? How many thoughts did I have around it that I could share with them to kind of change their perspective that they said to me as well? So I just wanted to bring that conversation to the podcast today, kind of as like an overarching theme, because it is really something I think we all deal with. And that would be kind of like dealing with the weight of other people's opinion. I think it's very natural and human of us to care about what other people think of us, but I also think that's very toxic and can lead to a, you know, maybe not the lifestyle that you want for yourself. So we are just going to discuss, you know, why do we care about what other people think of us? Like, what triggers that? What do those thoughts do to us? How can we conquer those thoughts and work through it.
I think it is such a prominent thing in today's world, especially with social media. And I can imagine for people who have like millions of followers, how hard it can be with like all the comments and stuff like that. But then even just regular old people like us and like your roommates who don't have millions of followers and aren't getting all those comments, it's almost harder hearing other people's opinions from like your peers or people who are friends with your friends, right? I feel like we get stuck in this, oh, well, what are they saying about me? Or if I don't go to this, are they going to talk about me? And are they going to question, like, what are they going to say? This is the reason I'm not there. Like, it can go in a million different ways. And it's like you said, it's really a toxic place to live in, because then I feel like you're constantly striving to live a life that other people will approve of instead of the life that you truly want to live and that you approve of for yourself. And you kind of have to find that distinction between what do I really want to do and what am I doing because I think other people want me to do it. And sometimes that gets very blurry. Like, you can't tell the difference until you truly take a step back and ask yourself that and really kind of examine your life, because if you get so caught up in it, everything can become like you're doing it for other people and satisfying other people, basically.
Well, and that's so important to recognize, like, the difference between what are you doing for you and what are you doing for other people, because it reminds me of that quote, your life is not your own if you are constantly caring about what other people think of you. And, you know, it's actually like exactly what you just said, I'm realizing, but because it's so true, like, when you hold the weight of other people's opinions, you're not going to act in the way that you would naturally want to act. That's just a fact, like when you're taking into other people's opinions into account.
Okay, so I feel like the biggest thing with other people's opinions and kind of taking things personally that other people might say about you or just about your life, in my opinion, it comes from like a lack of confidence in yourself and almost like a lack of respect that you have for yourself. And I say that because in the past, when I would hear things about me or someone would say something to me and I would get defensive, even with you as well, say you say something and I get defensive and I react and take it personally, it's 9 times out of 10 it's because I'm lacking confidence in that area and you kind of just pointed it out, so I'm getting mad about it and I'm taking it personally, and then I go into like a spiral of, is that who I am? Like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to like grow in that and get better and accomplish it, whatever it is. But I do just feel like a lot of that comes from confidence. And I know we talk about having self-confidence and self-respect a lot, especially in most recent episodes, but it is truly important. I feel like I stopped caring so much about other people when I became more confident in who I was. It almost just worked side by side with each other.
Well, I feel like the difference is between, like, when you don't have that confidence, right? Someone says something about you, you start to believe that. You easily believe it. Versus when you do have that confidence there, they may say it to you and you're unfazed because you're like, I know who I am. I'm sure of myself. I don't need your opinion to affect who I am because I know who I am. And that's like what the most important thing is. But that comes from being confident in oneself.
And the part where you just said, like, you can start believing what other people are saying about you, the reason it's so important to take a step back and kind of differentiate between things that you're doing that you actually want to do for yourself and versus what other people might be like guiding you towards, is because you have to be able to take a step back in moments like that and be like, do I really need to believe what they just said, or is that not me at all? And then once you take a moment to kind of process what they said, I feel like you kind of have the more like the wherewithal to understand, okay, is this important or it's not? And if it's not important, you kind of just like let it go and you don't take it as personally. But if you immediately hear it and are like, oh my God, that is true, that is who I am, you're not giving yourself the time to process it. And your brain and your body, you're going to believe whatever you tell it. So if you tell it what that person or, you know, what that group of people said about you, your body is going to believe it, and then it's going to start acting that way as well. And then it all kind of spirals into being like, okay, yeah, you're not this person who you want to be, you're who everyone else is telling you you are.
Well, and going off that, Kateri, to be honest about other people's opinions, sometimes they are not valid, but there may be some truth to them. So when you do take that step back, you know, if someone made a comment about you, you may be like, you know what, that I have been a little bit of a victim lately. And I would like to change that mentality. And like, that's kind of how you grow. So like, sometimes those comments will be true. It's how you approach it and reflect on it and like move forward with it that really matters. But like, I understand when you do take it personally, because it is personal and it is true. So you need to be able to differentiate between like, is that true, or is that completely false? And like, I'm so confident in who I am, like, I know that's not true about me, so I don't need to fix that. You know?
Well, like using it to your advantage as a learning opportunity and a growing opportunity, and not looking at it as such a bad thing, because I think with anything in life, how you choose to perceive it is huge and monumental in where that next step will be for you. So if you hear something and you're like, oh, that hurt, because honestly, I do feel like that is something that is true about me and I don't like that. Like you said, you can either use it to grow or you can use it to become like your new personality. And if you want to use it to grow, like, that's amazing. Boom, that person just helped you pinpoint an area that you didn't even know you wanted to work on, and now you can see it for really what it is and be like, okay, how can I tackle this head on?
Yeah.
And that's an amazing gift. Like, I think it's all just about how, like I said, how you perceive it. So if you perceive it as a good thing, then you're going to treat it as a good thing and change it for the better.
I think it all really comes down to what I'm thinking of right now. Like, when I hear of this confidence, I think it all comes down to self-reflection, honestly, and really knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing your values, knowing what makes you special, and knowing where your flaws are. Like, knowing every single part of yourself allows you to be confident in who you are, because if you don't get to know yourself, then like, that's why you let others dictate who you are, because you don't even really know who you are. So, you know, you believe Susie and what she says about you because, well, have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about yourself in that way? Like, that's why I think it's really, really important to just take time to self-reflect, get to know yourself, like every single part of yourself, and stand firm on that. Because when you're firm on who you are, other people's opinions will naturally be weightless to you. Like, you'll be like, that's not me. I don't care what they said. Like, that is not me. And you know that, and you're the only one who can know that.
No, exactly. It's such a good point. Like, the more confident you get, the less you give a shit about anyone else's thoughts and opinions. It's so true. And if you look at like I look at Lauren Bostic, for example, she's an extremely confident person in my eyes. Like, she knows who she is, she knows what she stands for, and that's that. She literally, I don't think that woman would be fazed by a troll on the internet, even if they tried the hardest that they possibly could to troll her. Like, even people like in her life, if they said something, I don't think she would be fazed.
Yeah, no.
You know, like, she's the type of person I'm like, it would just roll off her shoulder, and like, that's how I want to be. And honestly, I feel like that's kind of how we are becoming. I'm like, that person doesn't know me, I don't care. You know,
We've
what
definitely,
I mean? Like, even like people from college, people from high school, if I heard them saying something about me, I would be like, that's great, but they don't know who I am now. They knew me 4 years ago, they knew me 8 years ago. I'm literally a completely different person now. So what's it to you? You know what I mean?
What's it to you? Another point I want to bring up is we often give people the go ahead to give their opinion. And what I mean by that is, like, in certain situations, we may over explain ourselves to try and prove who we are to that person. And they are now going to shape an opinion about what we told them. They're going to perceive it a certain way. And I think when we do that and we overshare and we over-explain, we give them more freedom to create this perception. And then we're thinking about, like, what does that person think of me now? What do they think of what I just told them? Like, are they seeing it how I'm seeing it? And the reality is, like, we have no idea what their perception is. So now you're sending yourself in a tailspin because you just over-explained yourself for what? For their opinion on your life? Like,
no, I honestly, this has been something that took a lot of like self-reflection to realize that I over-explained myself to a lot of people in a lot of situations, and I just like give too much energy, and sometimes, or like information, I give too much information to them, and sometimes I still do that, and it's definitely like still working on that. But when I was working with our cousin Anthony in Florida, when I first started working with him, down to like sending work emails, he would always be like, why are you, like, he would be CC'd on all my emails. And he's like, why are you giving all of that information? Like, you don't have to explain why you need the information you're asking for from them. You can keep it as simple as that. I'm like, so true. So I would like start just kind of working it in a sense with like work emails, practicing that way. And then I noticed myself, if someone would be like, for example, like, oh, when's the next time you're coming home from Florida? Or like, are you going to come visit us soon? I miss you. I would go on like a rampage of explaining like, oh, why I'm not leaving Florida anytime soon, or like, I don't know when I'm going to get to them because of this and that. I'm like, you don't have to give all that information to these people.
Like, no, I'm not leaving Florida.
Yeah, like take a step back and just answer their question instead of answering and then providing extra information. Like, that was a very simple example of it, but I think once you start to realize how much information you're giving people, like you said, you're giving them more of an opportunity to form an opinion about you and what you said. And then it's like, you'll find yourself in this like whirlwind of a thing. It's like, I could have just left it at like, nope, I'm not coming home.
Yeah. Well, and the truth really is like, whether or not you gave that explanation, like, no, I'm not coming home because, or instead, if you just said no, right? Like, people are still going to form that opinion. They will always form an opinion no matter what answer you give. If you give the explanation, it just gives them more room to kind of form like maybe a more biased opinion, which we obviously don't want. But people are, at the end of the day, you are going to form an opinion. It's the natural human thing of us to do. And the reality is that you cannot control that opinion. Like, other people's perception of you is not your responsibility. We will never be able to understand what they're thinking in their mind. That's something that only they will know. And it's not our fault if they're choosing to believe something about us that's not true. You know, because you really are the only one who knows the truth of the situation. Like, deep down, you're the only one that knows the truth about you, about whatever you're talking about whatever someone is forming an opinion on. So we can't expect them to perceive it the same way as us. It's not their fault. And it's our duty to kind of not let their perception weigh on us and take over our mind and let us believe it be true.
Like, we can't control what's going on in their minds about us. I think another way, and this is kind of random, but what I feel like me and Isabel have really stopped doing is forming our opinions on other people a lot and like talking about people. And that can go into a whole nother conversation, but I do feel like I have really tried to pick up on myself. Okay, am I thinking this way about someone, and like for what reason? Like, what gave me the right to form this opinion about them? And once I started recognizing like how much I might have been like talking about someone or gossiping or forming opinions, I didn't like that about myself. So I really have tried to rein that back and be like, I don't need to form an opinion on their life because it's their life and they're doing their own thing and I'm doing my own thing, and we're going to keep it that way. I don't want to change that. So I just kind of leave it like that. Like, let them be them and they're going to let me be me, and I'm going to let myself be me. And it's almost, once I started doing that, I've cared even less about other people and their opinions on me because I don't hold that many opinions on other people.
Yeah.
You know, well, like, it's almost like remove it from your own vocabulary or from your own mind, and then it's even less of a like flashing light in your brain about like other people's perception of you.
No, that's great. That's really great. I think that also that just sparked a new thought in my head of like, when you are the one giving the opinion, you kind of realize like, when I have an opinion on someone, I recognize how much I don't know about that person. And I feel like when I think about myself giving the opinion, I then think about if someone had an opinion on me, and it reminds me of like, wow, how much do they not know about me? How much of the story do they not know? A lot. Like, so why am I even holding their opinion with any weight at all if they truly don't know the entire full story, or, you know, every thought that I've had or every detail about it? And I feel like when you put yourself in the shoes of the one giving the opinion, you recognize like try and form an opinion on someone. Go ahead. Try and give an opinion and then realize how much you don't know for that opinion to be valid.
No, literally.
Does that make sense?
No, 100%. It's so true. And it seems so like nitty gritty to do that, but it's the honest truth. Like, you never know who you're walking next to. You never know what they just went through, what their morning call, like what call they got this morning, the news they heard, anything. You don't know what's going on in people's lives. And if you remind yourself that people don't know everything that's going on in your life, you'll start, like you said, recognizing you don't know everything that's going on in their life. So how dare you? Who are you to judge, or who are you to make that opinion on them?
Exactly. And who are you to even care about their opinion on you? Like, They don't know everything. That's what I always try to remind myself. That's normally when I find myself in a situation of worrying about what people think of me, which of course happens. I'm human. I often am realizing that I'm like worried of how they're perceiving me, and I'm like, all comes back down to like no, I know who I am. I know more about this in my life. Like, they don't know this aspect. They don't know that. They don't need to know that. I don't need to explain myself. So I don't care what their opinion is, because truthfully, it's not right. I also just want to point out that, like, regardless of if you're confident in yourself or what may be true about what people are saying about you, like, there are so many people in this world, and we are all on our different journeys, and you are going to be a weirdo to somebody, right? Like, there's people that are weird to me. I'm weird to other people. That's the way of the world. And I find peace in knowing that, like, I'm on my own journey, and I really don't care what other people think of me, because I'm like, this is the way I want to live my life. Like, at the end of the day, this decision made me really happy, and I don't care what anyone thought of it, because if it brought me that happiness, then, like, that's what I should have done. And I just think when you take a step back and realize, like, how many different walks of life there are out there, and, like, everyone's, living the same life, yes, but a very different life at the same time. It's like, why would I care what Susie thinks? Like, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, like, there's so many people out there, like, I'll never see you again after college. Like, why do I care what this person thinks of me? Like, you're genuinely a dot in my life. And I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's like, I care what my circle thinks about me. That's about that, because they'll be with me for life.
No, it's
I don't know.
true.
I just wanted to bring up that, like, I always think of how many people there are, and I'm like, it's so crazy that I'm worried about, like, what she thinks of me, when there's so many other people that are, like, doing their own thing and then don't care and are unapologetically doing it. So
and I do feel like that is way more accepted now, like, in society. One of the good things is people just being, like, unapologetically themselves and, like, doing what they want. And I do think that is a great wave and, like, a mindset to have, obviously, like, in some guidelines of, like, you can't just do anything you possibly want sometimes, but I do feel like it's a good wave of, like, confidence that people are kind of gaining about themselves, and I'm here for it. I think it's a good way to be. And exactly, there's too many people in this world to get caught up on what Susie has to say. Love that you chose that name.
That's just the most, like, I don't know one Susie. It's Karen. The most basic name that I'm like,
it's like you're Karen.
Yeah,
I guess
it is. I never think of Karen.
Okay, so this episode probably could have gone on for a while, probably could have been cut shorter, but it's one of those topics that, like, it can kind of just keep going around in a circle, but it's still important to talk about and share, like, our thoughts on it. I think it's important that everyone takes a step back and recognizes, like, who they are, can build the confidence in themselves, and really just, like we said, use the year to get to know yourself and grow and become a better version of yourself, because the more you focus on you, the less others affect you. And I think that's really important to address and bring up. And, like as Will said, we are not perfect. I have moments of self-doubt and worry because of something someone said on the internet or something someone told me about me and my career, whatever it is. But how I'm going to use that information is what's going to either propel me forward or bring me back. And that's very important to remember. So just sharing that with you guys and being open and honest about the conversation. And if you ever, have any moments of, like, you're lacking self-confidence or you need help or you need advice, like, feel free to reach out to us. Isabel has great conversations with her roommates, and that's what sparked this. Like, we can have those conversations with you over DM, like, text us, call us, whatever it is. We are open to having conversations with anyone who wants to, really.
I'm going to leave you all with a little thought of the day inspired by today's episode topic, just to let this brew for the rest of the day.
Like coffee.
Okay. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think. And that's the motto I live by.
That's on that.
And that's on that, because I'm not living in prison for the rest of my life. I'm going to live my life
like a free woman.
So on that note, if you want to live your life, something I suggest in your life is liking, commenting, subscribing, following, interacting with us, sharing this podcast, sharing the wealth of information that we give you. We love you guys. You love us. We just want to grow together. So help us grow our platform and help us spread the word of no sugar to everyone. No sugar, no sugar, no sugar mama.
So we hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.